One of the best ways for a newer investor to get started investing in real estate is buying a foreclosure. And in this video, I'm going to go over with you if it's a good idea for you to buy a foreclosure or not. What's up, guys? My name is Shawn Connors. I am the managing broker and co-owner of VRA Realty, as well as a real estate investor here in Chester County, as well as the Poconos. And today we're going to be talking about buying foreclosures. Is it a good idea? What do I need to think about? What do I need to look out for? Do I want to deal with a bank? And I'm going to try and answer as many of those questions as possible because I believe that buying a foreclosure is the easiest and fastest way for you to get started investing in real estate. What even is a foreclosure? So essentially, a foreclosure is when the bank takes the property back from the seller who's not paying. That's the easiest way to look at it. Now, there's an entire process that goes into it where the seller stops paying, the bank sends a notification, 60 days, 90 days saying, hey, we're going to take the property back unless you start paying your mortgage, and then it goes to the sheriff's sale, and then if it doesn't sell at the sheriff's sale, then the bank actually forecloses on the property. It's probably a little bit different in each state, but here in PA, that's pretty much the process. And then what happens is that home gets passed to a listing agent who's an REO agent that specializes in it, and they list the property on the MLS so everyone has access to it. Now, I know I may have missed some steps in between, but don't worry about that because all we're talking about and all we're focusing on today is how you as a new real estate investor can get started by buying a foreclosure, right? And to think about it, it's, in my opinion, it's the best way because you are not negotiating directly with a seller. Well, you are, right? You're negotiating with a bank, but you're not negotiating with emotions. And in my opinion, you're just going up against someone who wants to sell it for a certain price and you want to buy it for a certain price. There's no emotion involved, which is great because when you're dealing with people and you're dealing with emotions, they are going to potentially make bad decisions, and you are as well. But going into this, you're not going to be dealing with that. The seller, the bank, has a certain price that they want to sell it for, and you as the buyer have a certain price that you want to buy it for. You make the offer, it gets accepted, you move on. You make the offer, it doesn't get accepted, you move on. There's no bad blood. And in my opinion, that's one of the best reasons why buying a foreclosure is a great idea. Now you'll see that there are a few different reasons why properties go into foreclosure. It's the seller who, for some reason, can't pay the mortgage because they're having some kind of financial hardship. Maybe the property is in such disrepair that the seller doesn't even want to deal with it anymore and they just stop paying. Those, in my opinion, are like the two main issues. It's either financial or something about the property that makes the property go into foreclosure, that makes the property owner stop paying the mortgage. So depending on what spectrum that property falls in, that's where you're going to know if you're getting a good deal or not. A property could go into foreclosure that's in really good shape. I've seen it before. I've helped clients buy foreclosures that were in good shape. They didn't need a lot of work. So whatever happened with the seller, it was probably something financial. Maybe they were going through a divorce. Maybe they lost their job and they couldn't keep up. So those properties, as investors, if you're looking to get a value add property where you can put money into it, increase the value, and then sell for a profit, are not going to be good. But if you're trying to buy a property that's in good shape, that's more turnkey to turn it into rental, it'll be good for that. But that's why you have to take into account the condition of the property. To me, that's everything. The worse a property smells, the more money you can potentially make. Think about that. The worse condition the property is in, the more potential profit you can make when you buy it. And you make your money when you buy properties. If you buy a home that's in bad shape for a good price, you know that you can put money into it, increase the value, and then make whatever spread it is, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. So that's something that you have to consider. Now, there are different ways that you can buy a foreclosure. There are in-person auctions, there are online auctions sometimes, and the majority of properties that I see just get listed on the MLS, which I mentioned before. Every single bank that takes a property back as a foreclosure has a different process. No one bank that I've seen does everything the exact same way as another bank. So I have seen properties and helped clients buy properties at online auctions, right? And you have to literally, it's like buying something off eBay. You know, they set it at a price and they say, today's December 1st, the price is $200,000, right? And they're trying to bid it up. They're trying to auction it off. The auction ends in 20 days on December 20th, whatever it is, right? And they're hoping that that starting price of 200 increases to 250 or 260. And I've helped clients buy them that way. And that's a great way to do it. Hubzu is one of the best, and HUD Home Store are the two best websites that I have seen to buy online auction properties from foreclosures. And then they have in person, which I don't have, that's the sheriff's sale. I don't really have that much experience about that. What I do know in Pennsylvania is, for the most part, you have to go there in person. You can't see the property before. For the most part, in my experience and just talking to people that have gone through it, you can't actually go to the property and go in and see it, where if it's listed online, then you know you have access to it. But for the sheriff's sale properties, you actually have to go and just know your numbers, have a general idea, and it's for more experienced real estate investors, in my opinion, but that's also another way that you can buy them. And then you just have the traditional way. Again, agents that are REO specialists will list the property. You have access to it through your agent. You go see the property and then you make an offer. That's pretty much it. But every bank, again, they have different processes. Sometimes the agents, as myself representing other clients buying properties, I've seen this before, they have different kind of fees they have to pay. There's different kind of earnest money deposit requirements. Actually negotiating on a bank-owned property, and it's a 10% down earnest money deposit. So the property's listed at $391,000. I'm trying to get it for around $300,000, and if they accept it, that means I have to give an earnest money deposit of $30,000 up front. And not all banks are like that. Some don't require 10%. Actually, this is the only one I've ever seen require 10% in my experience. So that's something to take into account, that all banks have a different process to buy their foreclosures. So here are some advantages of buying a foreclosure. I already mentioned the first one, which is always the best for me, is that you're not dealing with other people's emotions. It's just all about numbers. It's all about numbers for the bank. And I like that, because that means that I can go see multiple different foreclosures and I can just make offers. And I don't really care what they say back, right? And for the most part, the asset manager doesn't really care, because they're going to say, okay, I went 350 and you're offering 250. No, they might counter, they might not. So that's one of the number one reasons why I like buying foreclosures. I also like buying foreclosures because they're generally in bad shape. From my experience, all the foreclosures that I have seen, with a few exceptions, are really in bad shape and they need a lot of work. So that means that you can add value. And if you're flipping the property, that means you can make a higher spread on the flip. Or if you're holding the property, that means you can add value and increase the rent. And that's a great reason to look at foreclosures. And another reason why I like buying foreclosures is because that most buyers that are looking for homes are going to pass on those foreclosures, because they have this idea, this perception about foreclosures, that something is seriously wrong with this property. That's why it's a foreclosure. And again, in my experience, I have not necessarily seen that. Yeah, they're generally in worse shape, but it's not like the house is going to fall over, you know? And it means that you can get a really good opportunity, because the majority, I don't know, 90–95% of buyers that are looking for properties on the MLS are going to pass on foreclosures because they don't feel comfortable, which gives you as an investor more opportunities. And here are some of the disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is that there is no history of the property from a seller's disclosure. In Pennsylvania, every home seller needs to fill out a seller disclosure, and there are a few exceptions, and one of them is if it's a bank-owned property. So you're not going to see that 11-page document that details the history of the property, right? Generally, you feel more comfortable when you're buying a property with the seller's disclosure already filled out. But if you don't have that, then you don't know, right? You're taking a risk, and you're taking a bigger risk, which is a disadvantage. Another disadvantage of buying a foreclosure is that it can be a lengthy process. It can take a lot of time. It doesn't generally take as long as a short sale could, which is months to a year in some instances, but the process of buying a foreclosure, because you're dealing with the bank, you're dealing with process, and you're dealing with people who don't have a huge urgency to sell like a normal homeowner would. So if you're buying a foreclosure, just know going into it, the process could take a bit longer. It could take 60 days, 90 days. It could take a little bit longer to get through. So that's one of the things that I always like to tell buyers, that the process to buy a foreclosure when you're under contract to close can take much longer than a normal sale. And another disadvantage is if there are major items, major concerns with the property, since there is no seller's property disclosure filled out, and in some instances, the bank won't even allow you to have an inspection. They just want to sell it as is, where is, for cash, whatever the terms are, and that's something that you have to really look into. But if you're buying a property like that and you're not allowed to have an inspection and you have to act quickly because there's a lot of other people involved, you could potentially buy a problem with serious structural issues. And in my experience, and for me personally, I'm okay with buying properties that need a lot of work, but structural issues for me are a no-go. I don't want to buy a property that has structural issues. I'll buy it with a septic, I'll buy it with a well. I would even consider buying with stucco in this area of Pennsylvania, but I really don't want to take on anything with structural issues. And you have to know, especially if you're a new investor, how much risk you want to take on. And you're not going to know that unless you're able to have an inspection, or if you had that seller's disclosure. And there are cases where you won't have either if you're buying a foreclosure. So with that information, I hope it empowers you to think about buying foreclosures, because you can get a very good deal if you do. And again, there are advantages. In my opinion, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. So if you're considering going down that path, I think it's a great way for you to get started investing in real estate. I hope you found some value from this video. If so, then make sure you just comment below. If you have any questions about buying a foreclosure in Pennsylvania, in the greater Philadelphia area, and you want to reach out, just do. I don't mind helping you as much as I can. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day.